Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Dear students, in our last session, we have started discussion on cost accounting. So, we have seen what is cost accounting, then we have seen what are the objectives, advantages of cost accounting, and then we proceeded for various types of cost classifications. To take a brief recap, we have seen that accounting for costs is essentially a cost accounting, wherein the objective is to record the cost, to report the cost, same as financial. But apart from that, you want to do analysis of the cost, you also want to estimate the cost. These are the additional things which are done in cost accounting. One of the important advantages of cost accounting, it helps in cost control, because every entity wants to reduce or control its cost. So, cost accounting helps us in providing the cost details. It goes into a detailed analysis of cost. We know product wise, period wise or factory wise costs, so that they can be properly controlled or reduced. Secondly, it also assists in taking a variety of decisions. So, you may want to take a decision on pricing, organization may want to decide whether to make or buy, organization may want to take a call whether to use X mode of transportation or Y mode of transportation. For all such decision making, cost accounting provides very valuable input of the data. So, these are the main objectives of cost accounting. After that, we had proceeded for cost classification. Now, cost can be classified in variety of ways. One way of classifying is as per the nature or the element, that is material, labor or overheads. The other could be as per the function. So, typically the cost can be classified as factory or production costs, then admin costs, marketing costs. Costs can be classified as direct or indirect. They can be classified as per variability. So, you look at let us say variable, semi-variable or fixed costs. Costs can be classified by controllability, that is controllable and non-controllable, and so on. So, we were at the last classification wherein we classified the costs as per the relevance. So, as per the relevance, the cost can be classified as relevant or irrelevant or sunk. Now, what is a relevant cost? Here the relevance is considered from the viewpoint of some decision. So, the costs which are going to be affected or changed by a decision will be considered as a relevant cost. And there are other costs which are also related, but they are not actually affected by the decision, they will be sunk to a particular decision. Now, can you give me some example? Last time we have seen this example of R&D cost for a product, but the R&D cost for a product, though it may be for exclusively for that product, becomes irrelevant for a decision on to market or not to market that product. Can you give of any other example of a relevant or irrelevant cost? Tell me some decision and the cost which is relevant and the cost which is not relevant. Think of some decision, and in that line you can think of whether for that decision the cost is relevant or not relevant. Let us say a customer has asked me if I can deliver my product. Usually I don't deliver my product at a doorstep. Usually customers come at my shop and take the product. Let us say I am into retail business, but customer has demanded that he will give order if I give home delivery. So, I have to decide whether home delivery should be given or no, only for that customer. So, what will be the relevant cost and what is irrelevant cost or a sunk cost? Now, let us say if I have to deliver my product to the doorstep. I don't have any employees to do it. So I'll have to pack it slightly in a different manner. Then I may have to give it to some courier fellow who can deliver. So the relevant costs are special packing plus delivery charges, right? And what are the sunk costs? So other marketing costs, advertising, my admin costs, the cost of the product itself, all these are now sunk, at least for this particular decision. So for every decision you have to logically think what is a relevant and what is a sunk. This is very important for any manager for take a good decision. Now a little bit of extension of sunk cost is differential cost, which also we have seen last time. So when you have two alternatives and taking a particular alternative involves some extra costs or different costs, that's called as a differential cost. Can you give an example of a differential cost? So what is a differential cost? Suppose I am running a bus and 50% of the bus is empty. So typically this happens with tour operator. Somebody shows hands and wants to stop the bus and wants to enter. What will be the differential cost for carrying that passenger? Practically zero, because anyway bus has to run with one more passenger, hardly it matters. So they take extra passenger at any money, because the differential cost is not much. So differential cost is the additional variable cost or fixed cost, if any, involved. Okay, let us go to one more, that is known as opportunity cost. Now in case of scarce resource, what happens is, if you use your resource for say doing X, then you can't do Y. In such case, opportunity cost comes into play. So opportunity cost, though it is called as a cost, actually it is a revenue sacrificed for not going for a particular option. So when you choose option X, you are given an option Y. So you lose some revenue by not doing Y in favor of X, and that will be the opportunity cost of that resource. Now can you think of any example of opportunity cost? Let us say I have raw material is in short, a particular material is in short supply. I have 100 units of the material left. I have purchased the material for 100 units, which are purchased for 10 rupees each. So I have a stock of 1000 rupees. Now a customer comes and wants to buy the material from me for 16 rupees. I have purchased it at 10. The customer wants to buy it at 16. Same material I can use in my own factory to process it into some other product. Now what is the cost of that raw material for me? I will repeat my question. Raw material has a purchase price of 10 rupees. It is in short supply. Some customer wants to buy that from me at 16 rupees. But I can also use it in my own factory. So what is the cost of raw material for me? Normally it is 10 rupees because it is available in the market at 10. But in short supply, it becomes 16 rupees because if I use it myself and I do not sell it to that customer, actually I have lost an opportunity to sell it at 16. So cost of raw material is no longer 10. Actually it has become now 16. Cost itself has not changed. Cost is really speaking 10 only, but there is an opportunity component of 6 rupees making the total cost of 16. Any other example of opportunity cost can you think of? One very peculiar example for all human beings is time, because time is always at short supply. So if you do X, naturally you have to sacrifice Y. So if you do studies, you can't see film. So there is a opportunity cost involved. Or if you do X job, then naturally you cannot do some other job. So when you take some job opportunity, you are losing some other job opportunity, or you may be losing opportunity to do your own business. So there is a opportunity cost always attached to the time. Anything which is not easily available. Let us suppose today there is no water at our home. Suddenly we will be ready to pay any price for the water, because now water has become a very, very important commodity. Otherwise we may not be caring. Now this is also an example of a opportunity cost, because we are now ready to pay much higher price for the same resource because it is in short supply. Okay. So here one example I have given, that if we invest 1 lakh rupees in the business, our own business, so we are losing an opportunity to keep it in the bank as an FD. So the interest on that money is lost. So at least that much we must earn from our business. So though it is our own money, it doesn't mean it has come for free. It also has an opportunity cost that we are not able to earn interest on it. Okay, this is an example where an individual is earning some money, say 2.5 lakhs, and he decides to do his own business. So there is an opportunity cost of 2.5 lakhs per annum for his or her time. There is one more cost that is known as marginal cost. So here, suppose you are making 1000 units, you make 1000 first unit. The extra cost which you incur for that additional unit is called as a marginal cost. Can you link it to variable and fixed cost? What will be the marginal cost? Can you think of? Usually marginal cost is same as variable cost, because variable cost by definition is a cost which changes with the level of activity. Now you have made one more unit, so variable cost essentially will change. So in many scenarios, marginal cost is equal to variable cost, but not always. Sometimes what happens is your capacity is full. You make one extra unit, even fixed cost increases. In that case, marginal cost will be variable cost plus extra fixed cost. So by definition, anything for producing any one more unit or delivering one more unit of service, what you incur is called as a marginal cost. Then average cost. So average cost is very simple, common sense. You take the total and divide it by number of unit. Whatever you get is called as average cost. Okay, so we will go to one more classification, that is known as product cost or period cost. So generally all costs which you incur for a particular product, which are inventoriable, so which get added to the value of that product, are called as product costs. Can you give any examples of product costs? So raw material, definitely, that is a product cost. Let us say I run a furniture shop, because easily for you to visualize. I make chairs. What will be the product cost? I have a small furniture factory. As against this, there are period costs. These are the costs which are not related to a product. They are more an expenses for a particular period. So they are related more to time than the product. Now I think you can give me a better example. So I have a small factory. I make tables, chairs, like wooden furniture. Now can you tell me what will be the product cost, what will be the period cost? So the cost of the wood which I purchase, raw material, it goes into making a product, that's a product cost. Anything else? Probably wages or labor are paid for the work done, so that was also a product cost. What could be the non-product or the period cost? Let us say rent, depreciation of machines, management salary, marketing costs. These are all becoming period costs, because they relate to a particular period. Though they are useful to make the product, they cannot be directly attributable to the product. more or less you can say direct cost of the product are the product cost. But even the indirect cost of the product, if they can be related to the product, could be considered as a product cost. But something which is more for a particular period cannot be treated as a product cost. Any other example can you think of? Let us say you are a small software manufacturer. You make software by say a small team. What will be the product cost and what will be the period cost? By product, of course, you can include service also. Even if you are providing software service, that could be a product or a service cost. So, time which your team devotes in making that product or providing that service essentially becomes product cost. But overall, the computers which you have, maintenance of those computers, depreciation, office rental, marketing, all these things are more a period cost. They don't have directly anything to do with your product. In bigger, more organized setups, period costs are higher. Whereas for a small setup, period costs are generally minimized. Most of the costs are product costs. Okay, having discussed about the types of costs and what the cost accounting is, now we will go into cost accumulation or to see how the costs are recorded. For cost accumulation, it is very important for us to understand the distinction of direct costs and indirect costs, because that classification is mainly used for further accounting for the costs. So, let us see our module 9, which is basically devoted on cost accumulation. So, these are the important issues which we are going to discuss in 9th module. One, we will again see what is direct cost and indirect cost. Then we will look at cost allocation, cost drivers, cost apportionment, and the treatment of over and under absorption of the cost. In short, we will see what are the steps required to be followed to record the costs in a more systematic and analytical manner. So, in the last session, we have already seen the elements of cost and also the direct and indirect costs. This chart looks at it more in detail. You can see that basically the costs are divided into three parts, that is direct, material, labor and expenses. In turn, each of these can be classified as direct and indirect. Then all the direct costs are accumulated as one pool and all the indirect costs are accumulated as another pool. In other words, we can say that the direct costs include both the direct material, labor and also the direct expenses. Now, let us relook at the definition of the direct costs. So, any cost which can be stressed or which can be explicitly related to either a cost unit or a cost center is known as a direct cost. So, you can see the example that the cost of material which is required for a particular product is a direct cost. In other words, we can see that a particular raw material goes into making of the product, definitely we know that this is a direct cost. Can you think of any other example of a direct cost other than raw material? Labor costs are also direct. When operators you know that are working exclusively on one particular product or in one particular cost center, those costs, wages or salaries paid to those employees could be considered as a direct labor cost. What about direct expenses? Can you think of any such example? Relatively less examples, because expenses like maintenance, expenses like rent, these are more common in nature, they are indirect in nature. But suppose we have to pay royalty to the technology provider and the royalty is to be paid on per unit basis. So, you make one unit, you pay so much of royalty, then that royalty becomes a direct expense. If the royalty is paid in lump sum, that you have paid 100 crores and now you produce as much as you want, then it becomes an indirect cost. But when the royalty is payable on per unit basis, it is a good example of a direct cost. Now, let us look at this more in detail. So, you have a direct labor cost, It includes the cost of material and reasonable allowances for scrap. We have already seen it. And the cost which is considered for material includes the cost of freight and other charges, but do not include the purchase discounts. Now let us look at the indirect labor cost. We know that the actual cost of manufacturing that item or providing that particular service. The third could be direct expenses. Now it includes all expenses that are other than direct material and labor, but which can be particularly traced. The example of royalty we have already seen. Next are indirect costs, the costs which cannot be easily linked to a particular product or a cost center. So many of the costs which are common in nature. See, it could be possible to apportion the part of the cost to a cost center or a product. That we cannot call as a direct cost, because even an indirect cost can be somehow apportioned to a product. What we are saying is something which is exclusively related to a particular product or a cost center, that is what is known as a direct cost. And costs of all which are common pool, which are combined, they are treated as indirect costs. Now let us look at indirect material. So the material which are generally not physically part of a finished goods. So example given over here is supplies which are used and the materials which are required in the machine as lubricants. This could be treated as a indirect material cost. Can you think of any other example of an indirect material cost? One example is in the office you can use stationery. Stationery is also a material, but it has nothing to do directly with the particular product. So it could be treated as it must be treated rather as an indirect material cost. Similarly, you can have indirect labor costs. So the costs which are common in nature, so they could be associated with quality control, supervision, maintenance, purchasing, receiving departments, store departments, all these are indirect labor costs. Of course, you don't have to confuse that only support services are indirect. Even a cost which is production, for example, cost of, let us say, a supervisor or a foreman who exclusively is involved in the production but not exclusively involved in a particular department will be indirect. So those workers or those helpers which work only in one department, exclusively in one department, they become direct. But there will be those categories of employees, let us say supervisor, who supervises 3 departments at the same time. So his costs or her costs cannot be exclusively related to any one department, then that will also be an example of a indirect labor cost. So I hope you are clear. So it is not necessary that only non-production means indirect. Whatever cannot be exclusively attributable is considered as indirect. The third is indirect expenses. So again same thing, all those expenses which are not exclusively related could be indirect. Here you have large number of examples to give. I have given a few examples like depreciation, property taxes, utility costs, carriage outward. Can you think of some more examples? I think here you can give 10 examples also easily. Because most of the expenses are indirect in nature. Very tough to find a direct expense, but indirect expenses you can name many. Can you tell a few indirect expenses? Just think over. So in a factory setup, what could be an indirect cost? You have the cost of security. You may have the cost of rent. You may have the cost of canteen, cost of maintenance. All these are indirect in nature. Even in marketing, the cost of packing a particular item will be a direct. But other costs like advertising, like commission paid to, like the salary paid to salesman, this is all indirect expense. Commission paid to the salesman could be direct. If you know that after selling one item, person gets so much commission, it becomes a direct cost. But the salaries, perks, free samples, all these things are indirect costs. So this is how basic classification of the cost into direct and indirect is done. Now we will try to understand why this is classification in this particular manner. Before going into that, we will try to see what is a cost center. When I was trying to explain the direct expense, I had defined it in such a way saying that all those costs which are directly related to a product or a cost center. So you might be wondering what is this cost center? So cost center is essentially a unit of business. So the whole business or the whole of the operations are divided into small parts or units, and those small parts are where all the costs are accumulated. Such small parts or business units are known as cost centers. In common parlance, you may name them departments, because that is a term many times used. So the whole of the operations may be divided into small departments. Each of those departments could be considered as a cost center. More systematic definition you can see here, that it could mean a location, a person, or an item of equipment for which the costs may be ascertained. Now the main objective is to account for and the control of costs. Now suppose you have a, let us say, carpentry workshop wherein you take wood and convert it into chairs and furnitures. You have only two products to sell. You take in wood, there are three processes. It goes into cutting, it goes into assembly, it goes into finishing, and on the other side you get tables and chairs. Now what will be the cost center for you? Which could be the cost centers for you? So if you look from a broad company point of view, perhaps you may have a production department, you might have an admin department, you might have a selling department. So these three could be considered as a cost centers. But this may not be enough, because this does not give you enough control on your costs. So what company might do is, the production department may be subdivided into three parts, say cutting, assembly and finishing. These three could be considered as cost center. And then there were two products, chairs and tables, but not necessarily those products should be the cost centers, because these two products are being processed by all the three cost centers. So cost center is essentially a unit of business, it need not be a product. I hope it's clear to you. So now you can relook at a definition. What it says is that it could be a location. For example, in production setup, what happens is, say there is one room where all the cutting takes place. Then the costs of those rooms may be accumulated together, and that will be considered as a cost center. Then it could be a person, or it could be an item of equipment. Again, in a production setup, many times an item of equipment becomes a cost center. So you have some machine, that machine may be treated as a cost center, and all the costs of that machine will be accumulated together. What could be a situation where person is a cost center? Can you think of that situation? Where person becomes a cost center? Or it's not possible, because our definition says location, equipment or a person. Okay, every employee will get a salary. Does it mean the employee becomes a cost center? Rather, all people in the cutting department would together be a direct cost for a cutting department. So you can say that cutting department is in a particular room. So the power consumed in that room, the salary paid to all the operators plus supervisor of that cutting department, and the raw material consumed in the cutting department together forms a pool of costs which is direct to a cutting cost center. This is one scenario. Now my question is, can you have a person as a cost center? Okay, I will try to take you to service industry. Now, right now our example was for a manufacturing. Let us say you are in software. What will happen? Perhaps the place is not so important. Not like in manufacturing that in this particular room only cutting has to take place. People may be sitting in different locations. They may be sitting at their home perhaps. So, a team of people could be considered as a cost center. Let us say you have 5 developers, 2 of them sit in India, 3 of them sit in US, somebody sits on client location and all of them together are working on a particular product. Then perhaps the team of 7 people could be considered as a cost center. In marketing, what happens is many times there may be one manager and team of 12 salesmen. Salespeople move anywhere, but that manager plus 12 salespeople could be considered as one cost center. I hope you are now clear with all the 3 situations. So that is why we say that it could be a location. Many times in manufacturing setups, it is typically a room or a group of room or a part of factory that is perceived as a cost center because it is practicable and it is also necessary that the costs of that particular area are accumulated as a location. So location becomes a cost center. Sometimes the machinery is big enough. So an equipment or a group of similar machines could be considered as cost center. And sometimes person or group of persons could be a cost center. And of course, the combination, any combination of this is also possible. So this is how you can have a variety of cost centers depending on the type of industry and also the company policy. What is more important is all the costs of that cost center are accumulated, they are collected together, and the costs which are directly or exclusively related to that cost center are considered as direct costs. Let us also take an example of a say car or a taxi. Now what happens is, suppose you are operating a rent-a-cab system. Now what will be a cost center? So your company operates, let us say 100 cabs. What will be the cost center? Let us say of these 100 cabs, there are 15 luxury cabs, there are 60 let us say mid size, and there are another 35 which are small type of vehicles. So these 3 variety of cabs are available. So what will be the cost center? Perhaps it is not necessary that all 15 luxury cabs together is a cost center. Each cab or each vehicle could well be considered as a cost center, because you can accumulate the salary of the driver plus fuel plus maintenance and link it as a direct cost to that particular vehicle. So here vehicle is also an example of an equipment. So this is a way where equipment could be treated as a cost center. Again, you have here an example of a carpentry shop where crafting, assembly, polishing, finishing, etc. could be individually considered as cost centers. Okay, so this is the cost center. I am just repeating it again and again because this concept is very important for clearly understanding what and how to account for the costs. So what we are going to do is all the costs now will be linked to the cost centers. Whatever can be linked or whatever can be allocated will be allocated as a direct cost. Those costs which are common in nature will remain as indirect costs, and then they will also be apportioned to the cost centers in the best possible manner. So in a way, all costs are going to be linked to the cost centers either directly or indirectly. That is why it is very important to understand what a cost center is. At the same time, keep in mind that it is not necessary that all industry or all companies should have that type of cost center only. It is for the company to decide. Now what will happen if the cost centers are too large? Let us say in our carpentry shop, instead of having cutting, assembly and finishing, it is decided to have only one production cost center. What will be the impact if the cost center is too large?
Difficult to understand where inefficiency will be.
The cost control will be hampered. because we do not know how many people are working, where they are working, what they are doing. So if cost centers are reasonable in size, it becomes easier to control them. And what happens if they are too small? Let us say every carpenter is a cost center. Instead of having the whole cutting department with say 10 people, we say no, every person is a cost center for us. Then what will happen? It will lead to a problem where most of the costs are indirect. Other than perhaps the salary of the carpenter, all other costs like equipment, the power consumed, etc. will be common in nature. So it will be again very difficult to link it. So it is for the company to decide the cost center should neither be too small nor they should be so large that there is no control. That is why looking at the accounting and control viewpoint, company decides how to have the form the cost centers. Now let us go at manufacturing overheads. Now all the indirect costs, as we know, together are considered as overheads. In fact, overhead is another name given to indirect costs. Those indirect costs may be again subdivided functionally. So those costs which are mainly incurred for manufacturing or production are called as manufacturing overheads. Many times they are also called as factory overheads because they are common for a particular factory. So as you know, again manufacturing overheads can be divided as indirect labor, indirect material, labor and indirect expenses. Here flow I have tried to show for all the manufacturing costs. So we will try to first of all categorize the costs into direct and indirect. So all the direct costs like direct material, labor and expenses together are charged to a particular cost center and then to a product. So they get converted into work in progress inventory. Together all direct costs are also known as prime costs. Now on this work in progress, manufacturing overheads are charged. So we get finished goods inventory. On finished good inventory, other costs like admin costs will be charged and that will be treated as cost of production. To this, if you add marketing costs, you get cost of goods sold. This is how generally the cost chart is seen as. Now let us look at the steps of accounting for the costs. So in the beginning, I have tried to say that first we will list out all the costs. The next step, which is very important step, is categorization of those costs into direct and indirect, and that is known as cost allocation. So every cost is required to be classified either as a direct cost or as a indirect cost. All the direct costs, they are easy to handle because once identified as direct, they can be traced directly to a cost center. Now what remains are indirect costs. Now how will you account for indirect costs? What to do with those indirect costs? We have to identify some reasonable way in which they can be linked to a cost center. We have already discussed that every cost has to be linked to a cost center. Direct cost, there is no problem, it is exclusively related. Indirect cost, we need to have some reasonable basis, and those reasonable bases are known as cost drivers in short. Okay, so we try to see some factor due to which that cost is incurred, and then depending on the consumption of that factor, try to charge the costs. Can you, so I think allocation is clear to you. Allocation means direct costs are charged directly and then indirect cost remains, and those indirect costs we use some cost drivers. Let us look at what is a cost driver. So it is a factor like say level of activity or volume that affects the costs. So since it is a cause of the cost, we use it to charge the cost. Okay, can you give an example of a cost driver? Think of a cost and think of the cost driver for that cost. Okay, here are some of the examples. So let us say the cost of machining operations. Essentially it is related to machining hours. So we will use the machine hours to charge the machining operation costs to the cost centers. Okay. So when you know exclusively, no problem. But when you don't know exclusively and you know that the total cost of the machining is say 10 lakhs and total number of hours are 1000, then depending on the hours consumed by individual products, we will try to charge the machining cost to the products. That is why machine hours become cost driver. Next example you can see is setup cost. You know that initially when the machine starts, some extra power and labor is required. That is called as a setup cost. Depending on the number of setup hours, the setup cost can be charged. So let us say a particular product is made in small lots. It will require more setup cost because every time you have to set it up, make 100 units, then maybe some other product comes, then again the first product comes. Whereas some products may be made in bulk. So once you start the setup, whole day you make 1000 units, then setup cost will get minimized. Then there are inspection costs, ordering costs. So depending on pieces inspected or number of purchase orders, those costs can be charged. Can you think of any other example of cost driver apart from the ones which I have given here?
Sir, transportation cost we used to.
Let us say we are bringing in the raw material, and for bringing in the raw material we pay carriage inward or the transportation costs. How will it be charged? So if you are bringing in only one type of raw material, then it is very simple because it will become a direct cost. You will simply add it to the cost of that raw material. Sometimes what may happen is, using one vehicle or a truck, you bring in 4 type of raw materials because you want them in small quantities and you don't want to send vehicle again and again. So in one vehicle, 4 type of raw materials have come. Now how will you charge? So there is one bill for that truck or that vehicle, but 4 type of raw materials have come. So you may have to look at the weight of the raw material, or you may look at the space consumed in the vehicle by that raw material. On whatever logical basis, you will charge the transportation cost to those 4 type of raw materials. Are you getting? So what is a cost driver in this case? The weight of the raw material or space consumed by the raw material. Same way, let us say factory rent. It's a common pool. So you have a common cost for the whole factory. How will you charge it to individual departments? How will you charge the rent to individual departments? Based on the space used. So going by our earlier example, if we have a cutting, assembly and finishing department, we will look at the space used by each of the department, plus there may be department like storage, etc. So we will charge the cost to each of the departments according to space. So what is the cost driver for the rent cost? Depending on the square meters or whatever the unit of space you are using. So this is how the cost can be apportioned. So we will go to the next step now. I hope now the allocation is clear to you. Allocation means charging it directly. Now what remains is required to be apportioned. So in apportion, what is being done is, depending on the most reasonable way, the common costs are charged to the cost centers or to the departments. Okay. So stage number 1 was allocation, at which stage all the direct expenses got charged, indirect expenses remained. In stage number 2, all the indirect expenses are also apportioned to the respective cost centers or departments using the reasonable basis. Stage number 3 is a stage where all the costs are now ready. They have been collected at a cost center level. So sometimes you may be required to reapportion. So the stage number 1 was allocation, stage number 2 was apportionment. It may involve a sub step called as reapportionment. Can you think when the reapportionment is required? Let us say we are trying to charge the space or the rent cost based on space. How will it be charged? Depending on the area, space. So we have charged it to cutting, assembly and finishing, and something is also charged to storage. Now the problem is cutting, assembly, finishing are doing something on the product, but something like storage, canteen, or let us say cost accounting departments, they are not working on a particular product, but some rent gets charged to them. So that rent is again in turn required to be reapportioned. So whole common pool is apportioned and sometimes again reapportioned. Ultimate objective is that all costs should get accumulated on the production cost centers. The third step is known as absorption, the step which we are looking at. So now our ultimate objective was to charge the cost to the cost unit or the product. So far we have brought down the cost to the cost centers. Now we are trying to link it to products. For linking them, these are some of the bases used. For example, percentage of direct material, percentage of prime cost, percentage of direct labor cost, labor hour rate, machine hour rate and so on. Are you getting me what is done? So the total cost at a cost center is collected. Let us say the total cutting cost is known to us. Now we will see how much of the wood was cut for chairs, how much was the wood was cut for tables, and accordingly the cutting costs get charged to the chairs and tables. We may use the machine hour rate as a base. So whichever product uses more machine hours will get charged for the proportion of the time consumed by that particular product. So absorption is a phase where the allocated plus reallocated cost, that is the total cost of a cost center, are being charged to the products. Okay, so I hope the whole chain is clear to you. For absorption, you have any question now on the whole chain? Is it clear? So we started with listing of the costs, then we allocated, then we apportioned, then we reapportioned, and then in the fifth level we are going for absorption. Now in absorption, generally predetermined overhead rates are used. What is the meaning of predetermined? Means looking at the budgeted expense and the budgeted level of activity, some rate is worked out, and as and when the production happens, the product gets charged at that particular rate. Okay, so here is a formula for predetermined rate, that you have budgeted yearly overhead rate divided budgeted overheads divided by budgeted yearly activity, like say direct labor hours or direct machine hours. So you get the rate per hour. Now what could be the purpose for having a predetermined rate? Why do you want to have it as a predetermined? Why don't you stop for the production and then work out the rate? Because many times we want cost calculations in advance, like company may want to quote to the customer, or immediately after the production company may want to bill the customer. So to collect all expenses and also the basis, it may take some time, but production cannot stop till the accounting happens. That is why usually a predetermined rate is calculated, and then that rate is used for charging the product. Let us look at the steps. So step number 1 says that estimate the amount. Step number 2 is the estimation of the cost at that particular level. and in step 3 the rate is computed. So you take the total estimated cost and divide it by the base. Base could be hours, base could be in terms of number of units produced, base could be in as a percentage of labor cost. If you are taking, then the direct labor cost could be a base. So the total cost is the overhead cost is essentially charged to the products using some logical basis, that is called as absorption, and we typically use the system of having a predetermined absorption rate. So we stop here for the day. What we have covered today is, we started with the steps, that is apportionment, that is allocation, apportionment, reapportionment and absorption. Then we looked at what do you understand by cost center, and towards the end we have seen why do you need the predetermined rates and how they are calculated. In the next session we will continue with the next some more steps, and then we will look at the cases where how actual calculations are done. Let us stop for the day. Thank you.